Let me tell you something that most people won't tell you, and especially most men won't admit. Sometimes when a man loves you deeply, truly, the way that scares him a little bit, he doesn't run toward you. He steps back. And I know that messes with your mind because everything you've been taught says if he loves you, he should be calling, texting, chasing, showing up every 5 minutes. But grown man love don't always move like that. Love doesn't always look the way movies and social media make it look. Everybody thinks love is loud, fast, and always moving closer, but real love, grown love, sometimes does the opposite. Sometimes love steps back, not because it's weak, but because it's strong enough to protect itself. When a man truly loves you, the kind of love that reaches deeper than attraction, he becomes careful. And careful doesn't always look romantic to the outside world. A man who is just interested has no fear. He'll rush in, say big words, make bold promises, and move fast because there's nothing at stake for him. If it works, great. If it doesn't, he shrugs and moves on. But when a man loves you for real, when he sees something rare in you, something he doesn't want to lose, fear enters the picture. Not the fear of commitment, but the fear of messing it up. That fear makes him slow his steps. It makes him think twice before he speaks. It makes him create space instead of chaos. See, and half-focused, he knows that love requires presence, stability, and intention. And if he feels like he can't offer that yet, distance becomes his way of saying, "You deserve better than my confusion." He stays away not to punish you, but to prevent hurting you. Love that is serious starts to calculate the future. It asks questions that casual feelings never ask. When a man realizes that loving you means responsibility, not just emotion, he pauses. He doesn't want to bring you promises he can't keep. He doesn't want to give you a version of himself that will later disappoint you. So instead of rushing closer, he creates space to grow. Distance also gives clarity. When a man loves you, staying away allows him to test the strength of his feelings. He wants to know if what he feels is real or just temporary emotion. Space removes distraction. It forces honesty. In that silence, he either realizes he can't imagine life without you, or he learns that he needs more time to become the man you deserve. Either way, the space serves a purpose. And here's something most people won't tell you. Sometimes love pulls back because it recognizes its own power. A man knows that once he steps fully into your life, things will change. Expectations rise. Accountability increases. There's no more hiding. Staying away for a while is his way of preparing himself for the weight of loving you properly. He understands that real love isn't just about how he feels, it's about how he shows up. So when love steps back, don't immediately assume it's fading. Sometimes love is just protecting what it values most. Sometimes stepping away is not an act of loss, but an act of care. A man who sees long-term value in you does not move the same way a man who is just passing time does. When you become more than a moment to him, his behavior changes. He stops acting on impulse and starts acting with caution. Not because his feelings are weak, but because they are strong enough to make him think ahead. Long-term value creates responsibility, and responsibility makes a man slow down. When a man doesn't see a future, he has nothing to protect. He'll rush in, say whatever sounds good, and enjoy the present without worrying about tomorrow. He's free because there's no vision attached. But when he starts seeing you as someone who could be permanent, someone who could matter years from now, his mind shifts. He understands that one careless move can ruin something meaningful. So instead of being careless, he becomes cautious. Caution is often misunderstood as lack of interest. Silence gets mistaken for indifference. Space gets mistaken for rejection. But a man who values you long term is thinking beyond how to impress you today. He's thinking about whether he can sustain the version of himself you'll need tomorrow. He's measuring his consistency, his patience, his emotional control. He doesn't want to start something he can't finish. When you carry long-term value in a man's eyes, he begins to audit himself. He looks at his habits, his finances, his emotional maturity, and his direction in life. He asks himself if he's stable enough to bring you peace instead of stress. And if he finds areas where he falls short, distance becomes his response. Not because he doesn't want you, but because he respects you too much to offer you instability. A man who sees a future with you also becomes aware of consequences. He knows that loving you isn't just about how he feels, it's about what his actions create in your life. He knows that inconsistent presence, mixed signals, and unfinished healing can damage trust. So instead of stepping in prematurely, he steps back to gain control over himself. That restraint is not weakness, that's discipline. Distance is also a form of evaluation. When a man values you for the long term, he wants to make sure the connection isn't built on emotion alone. He uses space to see if the bond survives without constant interaction. He observes whether the feeling remains steady or fades when things slow down. That process helps him decide whether what he feels is real love or temporary excitement. And here's the part many people overlook. Long-term thinking makes a man protective. He protects the connection by not exposing it to his unfinished version. He protects you by not pulling you into his uncertainty. He understands that the wrong timing can destroy the right person. So he chooses distance until he feels ready to show up with intention. When a man sees you as someone who could be part of his future, he stops playing games. He doesn't rush because he knows that real things take care. His caution is not a lack of desire, it's proof that he understands the weight of loving you. Fear of failure shows up in ways most people don't recognize. When a man loves you deeply, that fear doesn't always make him cling tighter. It often makes him pull back, not because he wants to lose you, but because the idea of failing you feels heavier than the idea of being alone. When you matter that much, mistakes stop being small. Every wrong move feels like it could cost him everything. A man who doesn't care has nothing to lose. He'll show up unprepared, emotionally messy, and inconsistent because the outcome doesn't scare him. If it ends, it ends. But when he loves you, failure becomes personal. He imagines the look on your face if he disappoints you. He imagines being the reason your trust breaks. That fear forces him into distance, not indifference. Sometimes a man stays away because he knows he's not at his best yet. He may still be fighting his past, struggling with confidence, or rebuilding parts of his life. Loving you while he feels unfinished makes him uncomfortable. He doesn't want to bring chaos into something that feels pure to him. So instead of showing up halfway, he steps back to protect what he hasn't fully earned yet. Fear of failure also makes a man quiet. He doesn't want to speak too soon, promise too much, or raise expectations he's unsure he can meet. Silence becomes safer than false hope. In his mind, saying less is better than saying the wrong thing. That silence isn't emptiness. It's restraint. Distance gives him time to prepare. It gives him space to strengthen himself emotionally and mentally. He wants to approach you as a man who is sure, not one who is guessing. The fear of failing you pushes him to self-reflect. He replays his past relationships, his mistakes, and the patterns that caused him to lose good women before. He doesn't want history to repeat itself with you. A man who fears failing the woman he loves also fears becoming dependent on her too soon. He knows that emotional attachment without stability can create pressure. So he controls his closeness until he feels grounded. That control is his way of managing his emotions so they don't run ahead of his ability to lead. What feels like emotional distance to you may actually be emotional responsibility on his part. He understands that love requires more than feelings. It requires readiness. And if he's not ready, staying away feels more honorable than coming close and collapsing under pressure. Fear of failure doesn't mean he doubts the connection. Often, it means he believes in it so much that he's afraid of ruining it. And some men would rather take time to prepare than rush in and become the reason something beautiful breaks. Emotional maturity changes the way a man moves in love. When his feelings are shallow, he reacts quickly. He chases impulse, speaks without thinking, and acts without considering impact. But when his emotions are deep and real, he slows down. That control often looks like pausing before stepping forward. A mature man knows that emotions alone are not enough to sustain a relationship. Feelings can rise fast and fall just as quickly. So when he loves you, he doesn't let emotion drag him into decisions he hasn't fully thought through. He pauses. He knows that bringing those into your life prematurely can create confusion and pain. Instead of letting emotion lead, he lets wisdom guide him. That wisdom tells him that timing matters just as much as intention. Emotional maturity also teaches a man the power of restraint. He understands that being able to walk away temporarily is sometimes healthier than staying close for the wrong reasons. He doesn't need constant validation or attention to confirm his feelings. He trusts what he feels enough to give it space. That trust allows him to step back without fear of losing control. When a man pauses before committing, he's evaluating alignment. He's observing whether his values, goals, and emotional capacity match the level of commitment love requires. He's not asking whether he wants you. He already knows that. He's asking whether he can love you correctly. That question takes time to answer honestly. A mature man also understands the damage of mixed signals. He knows that coming close and pulling away repeatedly can hurt you. So if he feels unsure about his readiness, he chooses distance over inconsistency. That choice is not avoidance, it's consideration. He'd rather be absent for a season than present in a way that confuses your heart. Pausing allows him to regulate his emotions. Love can be overwhelming, especially when it's unexpected or intense. A mature man doesn't let intensity control him. He gives himself space to process what he feels so that when he does step forward, he does so with clarity and confidence, not pressure. So he pauses, reflects, and prepares. He understands that stepping forward at the wrong time can undo something that has the potential to be lasting. Self-control is one of the hardest things for a man to master, especially when love is involved. Desire wants closeness immediately. Emotion wants connection right now, but discipline understands timing. When a man truly loves you, but of his ability to govern himself, a man who lacks self-control will rush toward what he wants without thinking about consequences. He'll say he loves you before he understands what love costs. He'll come close even when he's emotionally unstable, financially unprepared, or mentally scattered. He moves based on impulse. But a man who has learned restraint understands that love without control can destroy the very thing it touches. When a man loves you and stays away, he may be protecting you from the parts of himself that are still under construction. He knows his weaknesses. He knows where temptation lies. He knows how easy it would be to fall into patterns that feel good short term but cause damage long term. Distance becomes his boundary. It's how he keeps himself from crossing lines he's not ready to honor. Self-control also means not taking advantage of access. A man who truly respects you doesn't want closeness if he can't offer commitment. He doesn't want emotional intimacy without responsibility. So instead of enjoying your presence selfishly, he removes himself until he can show up correctly. That decision takes strength because walking away from someone you love is never easy. Staying away tests his intentions. In the quiet, without constant communication or physical closeness, he has to face what he truly feels. Lust fades quickly in distance. Ego gets quiet. What remains is truth. If love survives space, it proves itself. A disciplined man understands this. Self-control also protects the future. A man who loves you doesn't want to create memories he can't sustain. He doesn't want to start habits he won't be able to continue. He knows how painful it is when consistency turns into confusion. So he holds back until he's confident that when he steps in, he can stay in. Distance is often the hardest choice because it goes against emotion. Emotion says call her, see her, hold her, don't let her drift. Discipline says wait, prepare, strengthen yourself first. A man who chooses discipline over impulse is thinking long term. He's thinking about the version of himself you'll experience, not just the feelings he wants to feel. There's also a test in staying away that reveals character. Can he remain faithful in his heart without constant reassurance? These are questions self-control answers. And a man who passes these tests is far more prepared for real commitment. Staying away doesn't mean he doesn't miss you. It doesn't mean he doesn't think about you. Often, it means he's choosing the harder road because he believes you're worth it. Easy love rushes. Controlled love waits. Easy love takes. Controlled love prepares. Self-control is love in its quietest form. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek credit. It simply chooses what's right over what's easy. And sometimes what's right is staying away until love can be given the way it deserves to be given. A man who is serious about love doesn't live only in the present moment. He thinks ahead. He understands that what feels good today can create pain tomorrow if it's not handled correctly. When love is real, it shifts his focus from immediate pleasure to long-term impact. He starts asking himself not just how this feels now, but what this will mean later. That mindset changes everything. Real love carries vision. A man begins to imagine how this connection fits into his future. He considers stability, growth, and direction. He thinks about whether he can protect your heart, not just win it. That forward thinking makes him cautious. He knows that love is not just about starting something, it's about sustaining it. And if he's unsure he can sustain it yet, distance becomes his way of buying time. A man who thinks about tomorrow understands that timing matters. The right person at the wrong time can turn into the wrong outcome. So instead of forcing closeness, he allows space. He knows rushing can create expectations he may not be ready to fulfill. When a man loves you, he knows his actions will shape your emotional world. He knows inconsistency can create insecurity. Mixed signals can create doubt. So if he can't be steady yet, he chooses absence over instability. That choice is not comfortable, but it's considerate. Thinking about tomorrow also means preparing himself. A man may use distance to build the life, discipline, and mindset required to love you properly. He may be working on his purpose, his finances, or his emotional maturity. He understands that love doesn't exist in isolation. It's affected by everything else in his life. Staying away allows him to align those areas so that when he comes close, he can come with confidence. A man who values the future also values legacy. He doesn't want to be remembered as someone who came into your life and caused confusion or heartbreak. He wants his presence to mean something positive. That desire makes him careful with access to you. He doesn't take your heart lightly. He knows once he steps in, he leaves a mark. Real love understands that patience now can prevent pain later. Distance becomes a form of patience. It allows emotions to settle and intentions to become clear. It creates space for honesty, both with you and with himself. A man who loves you enough to think about tomorrow is willing to endure the discomfort of waiting today. What may feel like absence is often preparation. He's not ignoring the connection, he's respecting its potential. But because he's serious about what loving you should lead to. When a man thinks about tomorrow, he doesn't gamble with today. He moves carefully, deliberately, and with purpose. Real love isn't in a hurry. It's focused on where it's going, not just where it is right now.